رحم الله من قرأ سورة المباركة الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. الحمد لله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله بارئ الخلائق الأجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء حبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ثم الصلاة والسلام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين، لا سيما ولي الله الحجة ابن الحسن صاحب الأمر والزمان. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. روحي وأرواح العالمين له الفداء، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين إلى قيام يوم الدين. آمين رب العالمين. أما بعد، قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم: اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجه، إن الحسين مصباح الهدى وسفينة النجاة. صدق الرسول وآمنا به. نوروا مجالسكم بذكر محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أحبائي, with the istishhad of Maulana Imam Muslim bin Aqeel alayhi salam,
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
you find that the grief of Muharram for the lovers of Ahlul Bayt begin from a night like tonight. Indeed, from amongst the first Shahadah of Bani Hashim in this grand battle of establishing Haqq and separating it from Batil, this battle of Ashura on the plains of Karbala, the first blood of Bani Hashim to be spilled was the blood of Muslim bin Aqeel alayhi salam that was shed in the lands of Kufa. For the beginning of this revolution is marked with the mission of Imam Muslim bin Aqeel alayhi salam. And this in itself is a great mark for us, the lovers of Ahlul Bayt, as we prepare ourselves physically, emotionally, and mentally for the months of Muharram. Because you find that in every year, Allah Azza wa Jal, through His mercy, opens the doors for each and every generation after Karbala to establish them in this qa'imah, in this list of the Ansar and the Ashab of Sayyid al-Shuhada. In every day, in every age, in every generation, you and I have the opportunity, in the manner in which we relate to Muharram, either to be registered as from amongst the Ansar of Sayyid al-Shuhada, law wal-ayadu billah, to be from amongst the enemies of Sayyid al-Shuhada. You find the hadith in regards to these are numerous, and the ziyarat that we recite are numerous. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by the grace of Mawla, gives us an opportunity during the nights of Muharram, inshaAllah, we shall expand upon this concept more. فَيَا لَيْتَنِي كُنْتُ مَعَكُمْ فَأَفُوزَ فَوْزًا عَظِيمًا. Ziyarat Waritha, which we recite almost every Thursday night. Hayya laytani kuntu ma'akum. I wish I was there to be with you. فَأَفُوزَ فَوْزًا عَظِيمًا. such that I may have gotten or have had a part of this great success. This statement, Ya laytani kuntu ma'akum, I wish I was with you, is not some pure, void, meaningless wish or desire. Sometimes you desire for something that is possible, as opposed to desiring for something that is impossible. This ziyarat waritha, which emanates from a ma'soom imam, wal ayadu billah, that a ma'soom imam who is at the peak of intellect would teach the Shia to wish or desire something which is from the impossible. Rather, the Imam teaches us to wish for that which is possible. What is impossible, in that we return back to 61 Hada Sahih. But what is possible is to meet from, or to be from the Ansar of the Imam in this day and age, to be from amongst those people who will avenge Imam al-Hujjah, who will avenge Imam al-Hussein with Imam al-Hujjah, and who will avenge Imam al-Hussein in Alam al-Raj'ah. Ya laytani over here means this. Yani, there is a real probability to be within that list of the Ansar of Imam al-Hussein. The manner in which we uphold the month of Shahrul Muharram, khasatan in this day and age with the challenges that are in front of us, is going to be the ultimate and the litmus test between those in this year. It was maqdur that they will be within this vast umbrella of Imam al-Hussein, and tabi'atan there are those who are going to lose out. And the dua from the bottom of the heart is that Allah Azza wa Jal does not deny us the opportunity. Our own sins, our own fears, our own love for dunya does not become a barrier from us serving Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. And the tawfiq is from Allah Azza wa Jal. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad.
فأحبائي, you find that upon the death of Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan al-La'in, Sayyid al-Shuhada alayhi salam openly rejected and refused to grant bay'ah to Yazid al-La'in. And as a result of the Imam openly advocating his stance of opposition against Yazid ibn Muawiyah, or so-called Ibn Muawiyah al-La'in, the Imam was then forced, or the Imam strategically, you can say, migrated from the city of Medina towards Makkah al-Mukarramah. The historians are of the opinion that Sayyid al-Shuhada left Medina on the 27th of Shahrul Rajab and moved towards Makkah al-Mukarramah, reached the blessed land of Makkah al-Mukarramah on the 3rd of Sha'ban. Now, you find that as the news spread amongst the Islamic Empire and within the people of Hijaz, that over here you have Sayyid Shabab Ahlil Jannah, Hussein ibn Ali, Imam alayhi salam, who has rejected any sort of allegiance towards Yazid al-La'in and has openly taken a stance of opposition. A number of people from within the Islamic lands began to write to Imam al-Hussein to stand up in armed revolution against Yazid. And you find that from the people who wrote towards Imam al-Hussein, a large number of the letters that were received by Sayyid al-Shuhada while he was in Makkah was from the people or the dwellers of Kufa. The city of Kufa in itself, there is a great misconception, Ahibai, that the Shi'as of Imam al-Hussein wrote, the Shi'as of Imam al-Hussein in Kufa wrote to Imam al-Hussein, and eventually it was the Shi'as of Imam al-Hussein who abandoned Muslim bin Aqeel. Hada tara, you would find that this is one of the greatest slanders against the Shia that has been recorded in the books of history, that were authored by historians paid by governments that were against Tashayyu to undermine the Shia masses. And within the nights of Shahr Muharram, we've explained before, but inshallah in these coming nights of Shahr Muharram, we will elaborate with much detail the cosmopolitan makeup of the city of Kufa. And you find that how majority of those who actually abandoned Muslim bin Aqeel were from those Muslimin who viewed Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam as the Khalifa of the Muslims, fourth in line, as opposed to being the divinely selected Imam and Wasi of Rasul Allah. For you find that Al-Muhim, the dwellers of the city of Kufa, came forward, and historians Tariq al-Tabari narrates that when Imam al-Hussein was in the city of Makkah al-Mukarramah, there were up to 12,000 letters that were received by Imam al-Hussein from the city of Makkah, from the city of Kufa, inviting him to come to the city and to lead them in revolution. Such that the historians say on any given day in the city of Makkah, there were people who are coming from Kufa, mailmen you could say, or postmen, coming from the city of Kufa, bearing letters that were signed by families, by tribes, by congregations of people. A single letter with, you could say, like a petition with signatures of 30, 40, 80, 100, so on and so forth. Such that 12,000 letters had reached Imam al-Hussein. At this point, Imam al-Hussein responded to the letters of the Kufans by appointing his emissary, Imam Muslim bin Aqeel alayhi salam, to go towards Kufa. And you find that the azama and the fada'il of Imam Muslim bin Aqeel is understood in the manner in which Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam describes him.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
You have a look at a transcript of the letter written by Imam al-Hussein and given to Muslim bin Aqeel alayhi salam as he sent him towards Kufa. The letter says, وَقَدْ بَعَثْتُ, written by Sayyid al-Shahadah, وَقَدْ بَعَثْتُ إِلَيْكُمْ أَخِي وَابْنِ عَمِّي وَثِقَةِ مِنْ أَهْلِ بَيْتِ Muslim bin Aqeel bin Abi Talib. And I am sending to you the people of Kufa, my brother, وَابْنِ عَمِّي, and my cousin, Muslim bin Aqeel, وَثِقَةِ مِنْ أَهْلِ بَيْتِ. These are the words of a Ma'soom Imam, Sayyid Shabab Ahl Jannah. Kalima kalima, word by word, there needs to be ta'ammul and there needs to be tadabbur. The Imam says, I am sending towards you my brother, Akhi, my brother, Wabna Ammi, my cousin, Ibn Am, yani the son of my uncle, my cousin. And this is Wadih Ibn Ammi Muslim bin Aqeel, Aqeel being the brother of Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam. For you find Muslim, Imam Muslim and Sayyid al-Shahadah first cousins. Ibn Ammi, we understand. If they are first cousins by way of lineage, what is meant by Imam al-Hussein saying, Wa akhi, and my brother? Over here, the understanding of the word brother is the same manner in which Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam would address would address Amir al-Mu'minin by saying Akhi Ali, my brother Ali. Brother meaning what? He is my nafs. Just like the way Sayyid al-Mukarram, rahmatullah alayh, one of the grand ulama and khutaba from the city of Najaf al-Ashraf, who has the Maqtal, which is well known as Maqtal al-Mukarram, I believe is also translated in the English language. And like any other Maqtal, it may need little bit of clarification, and it needs a bit of cross checks, especially when it comes to his ta'liqat, his footnotes. The Maqtal in itself is a good base for a person who wants to understand the intricacies of the revolution of Imam al-Hussein, khasatan what happened on the day of Ashura and after. Maqtal al-Mukarram, believe it is translated in English language as well. Sayyid al-Mukarram, Sayyid Abdul Razak al-Mukarram, rahmatullah alayh, in his book, which is authored on the life of Imam Muslim bin Aqeel, states that just like the way Amir al-Mu'mineen was the deputy of Rasulullah, his wasi, and many times he says to the people when he introduces Amir al-Mu'mineen, and he says to Amir al-Mu'mineen, Anta akhi wa wasiyyi wa khalifatun ala ummati min ba'di. You are my brother yani in proximity, my soul, my nafs. And based on this, you are my deputy. The same way Amir al-Mu'mineen being the deputy for Rasulullah, Muslim bin Aqeel being the deputy for Sayyid al-Shahadah. Wa thiqati min ahli bayti. The most trustworthy one from my family members. Why did Imam al-Hussein send Imam Muslim bin Aqeel to Kufa? You find that Zahiran, what is apparent from the letter, is that Imam al-Hussein says, I'm sending you my deputy, Muslim bin Aqeel, who will then verify whether the sentiments that you have written to me in regards to loyalty towards me, he will verify if the sentiments that are in writing in your letters is truly what is inside of your hearts. So he will come to assess and monitor the situation. This was only a part of the mission of Imam Muslim bin Aqeel, to assess and monitor the situation of Kufa, meant to do an analytical check in what we would say in today's day and age, an analytical check and gather intelligence on the political, religious, and economic setting of the people of Kufa. More than that, this is a responsibility that can only be given to a person who not only has expertise in every one of these areas, but the highest level of expertise to the extent that the Imam says he's my deputy. More than that, if you want to know the fada'il of Imam Muslim bin Aqeel alayhi salam, the same letter goes on, and a copy of this letter you can find it in Maqtal al-Khawarizmi. وهو متوجه إليكم إن شاء الله ولا قوة إلا بالله فإن كنتم على ما قدمت به رسلكم وقرأت في كتبكم فقوموا مع ابن عمي وبايعوه. Imam al-Hussein says to the people of Kufa, if you are true in what your claims are, that you want me to come to Kufa and to be your Imam and lead you towards eternal success in the dunya and the akhirah, look at these words, فَبَايَعُوهُ, then give bay'ah to Muslim bin Aqeel. Look at the grammatical tense, the verbal tense used by the Imam. Baya'uh, yani fi'il amr, command tense. When a command tense emanates from an Imam, particularly in the usage of the word bay'ah, Yani this is an obligation. Muslim bin Aqeel alayhi salam had reached a station of ilm, taqwa, diligence and leadership to the extent that bay'ah to Muslim bin Aqeel is equivalent to bay'ah to Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. This Imam al-Hussein, who Rasulullah says Misbahul Huda, the lantern of guidance, this Imam al-Hussein, who is Safinatun Najat, the ark of salvation, this Imam al-Hussein, who is the master of the youth of Jannah. If you want to give allegiance or pledge allegiance to Imam al-Hussein says, pledge this allegiance to Muslim bin Aqeel first. Nadiran, you will find in history, very rare, if any occasion, you will find that any person has reached a level of kamal such that bay'ah to him is equivalent to bay'ah of Imam al-Hussein. Do you know the implications of the word bay'ah to Imam Muslim bin Aqeel means bay'ah to Imam al-Hussein? Yani any statement that emanates from the blessed mouth of Imam Muslim bin Aqeel, which is a command, becomes wajib to implement. And anything that Imam Muslim bin Aqeel states that you should refrain from becomes haram. This is the meaning of bay'ah, pledge of allegiance, total submission, mutlaqan, unconditional. Who is this Imam Muslim bin Aqeel, such that Sayyid al-Shahadah says, you are my trustworthy deputy. Trustworthy deputy. Obedience to you unconditional is unconditional obedience towards me. Al-Maqam Kabir. For the historians mention that Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam sent Imam Muslim bin Aqeel on the 15th of Shahr Ramadan from Makkah, because at this point historians are of the opinion that when Imam al-Hussein left Medina on the 27th of Shahr Rajab and went towards Makkah, there was a number of Bani Hashim with him, and there were some Bani Hashim who were not with him. From amongst the Bani Hashim who were with him, one of them was Muslim bin Aqeel and his children. For example, some of the Bani Hashim who were not there were the children of Sayyidah Zainab al-Kubra, Sayyid Aoun and Sayyid Muhammad. They were on a different mission, together with their father Abdullah ibn Ja'far, in terms of establishing the roots of the revolution of Ashura. And then, having completed that mission, Abdullah ibn Ja'far sent them to catch up with Imam al-Hussein in the rest of the masirah, in the rest of the journey. However, what is apparent is that Imam Muslim bin Aqeel left Medina with Imam al-Hussein and was with him in Makkah. Hence, on the 15th, Imam al-Hussein reaches Makkah on the 3rd of Sha'ban. Between the 3rd of Sha'ban and the 15th of Shahr Ramadan, there are close to 12,000 letters that Imam al-Hussein has received. 12,000 according to the least figure. 15th of Shahr Ramadan, 60 AH, Imam al-Hussein decides to send Muslim bin Aqeel to the city of Kufa and to set the grounds for seeking bay'ah on his behalf from the people of Kufa. Imam Muslim bin Aqeel, 15th of Shahr Ramadan, leaves the city of Makkah and goes towards Medina. He spends some few days inside of Medina, performs the ziyarah of Rasulullah, completes whatever task that was given to him by Imam al-Hussein, and from Medina he goes towards the city of Kufa. Historians tell us that Muslim bin Aqeel alayhi salam reached the city of Kufa on the 5th of Shawwal, 60 AH. The 5th of Shawwal, Imam Muslim bin Aqeel reaches the city of Kufa. Historians are of the opinion that the mashhur is that he was a guest in the house of Mukhtar, Whereas some historians are of the opinion that Muslim bin Aqeel, actually when he came to the city of Kufa, resided in the house of Muslim bin Awsaja. And if a person who follows history carefully, keeping in mind the circumstances that surrounded Imam Muslim bin Aqeel, it is very possible that when he initially came to the city of Kufa, he spent some nights or some time in the house of Mukhtar and sometimes in the house of Muslim ibn Awsaja. Al-Hasil, as soon as he reached the city of Kufa, he held his first private gathering for the Shias of the city of Kufa. They gathered inside the house, and Muslim bin Aqeel alayhi salam read for them the letter that was written by Imam al-Hussein on how he was sending Muslim bin Aqeel, and the bay'ah towards Muslim bin Aqeel was to be given to him. And you find that the first people to respond to Imam Muslim bin Aqeel, pay attention to these names and see how these names then show up on the day of Ashura. The first person from amongst the first people to give bay'ah to Imam Muslim bin Aqeel was this battalion by the name of Abbas, Shaheed with Imam al-Hussein on the day of Ashura. As soon as Abbas gave bay'ah and proclaimed his allegiance towards Muslim bin Aqeel, the second person to do so was Habib bin Madahir. The third person to do so was Sa'id bin Abdullah al-Hanafi. Habib bin Madahir, whom all know from the Shahadah of Karbala, and has been blessed by Sayyid al-Sajjad in that he was buried in his own grave outside of the mass graves in which the rest of the Shuhada of Karbala are buried, which shows the maqam of Imam Muslim bin Aqeel. The third person to give bay'ah to Muslim bin Aqeel was Abdullah ibn Sa'id al-Hanafi, or Sa'id ibn Abdullah al-Hanafi. Who was Sa'id ibn Abdullah al-Hanafi? One of the people who on the day of Ashura stood in front of Imam al-Hussein at the time of Salatul Dhuhr, as Imam recited the Salatul Khawf, according to majority of the Mu'arrikheen. Sa'id ibn Abdullah stood in front of Imam al-Hussein and defended the Imam by taking arrows to his chest while the Imam recited Salat, which is when Imam completed the Salat, Sa'id falls down to the ground. High from the first people to give bay'ah to Imam Muslim bin Aqeel. And this is an ishara for us. You notice that Habib gave bay'ah to Muslim bin Aqeel. Abbas gave bay'ah to Muslim bin Aqeel. Sa'id bin Abdullah gave bay'ah to Muslim bin Aqeel. In between, Muslim bin Aqeel alayhi salam is abandoned by the people of Kufa. And you find these three companions end up in Karbala. Hence, there is a big part of history in the role of Muslim bin Aqeel and what happened at this time that people began to desert Imam al-Hussein or began to desert Muslim bin Aqeel, that you find the likes of companions such as these rerouted their entire journey towards Karbala. What we are able to understand, this we will elaborate, as we said before, more on the nights of Shahr Muharram. But as a khulasa for you, is to take home, and you know that within all the turbulence that was happening in the city of Kufa, as soon as Imam Muslim bin Aqeel saw that the majority of the people are willing to sell their deen for this dunya, he mobilized these groups of companions and paved the way for them to reach Imam al-Hussein inside of Karbala. And this was perhaps one of the greatest missions of Imam Muslim bin Aqeel, to ensure the likes of Muslim ibn Awsaja and Abbas and Sa'id, who are in Kufa, will meet up with Imam al-Hussein in Karbala.
برای خوشنودی امام زمانہ بلندر صلوات اللهم صل علی محمد و آل محمد.
these companions came up and they gave bay'ah initially to Imam Muslim bin Aqeel. And as the word spread in the city of Kufa, more and more Shia and more Muslims, even those who did not necessarily believe in the divine wilayah of Amir al-Mu'mineen, they saw this as a political opportunity to switch parties and perhaps voted a ruling power through whom the maslihah of their dunya will be well off or better than what it is with Bani Umayyah. There was this big class of people as well. For them, Imam al-Hussein and the revolution of Imam al-Hussein was only a political movement which they were ready to support so long as it supported their dunya. But you will notice the scales changed, the tides change, and they change as well. For the narrations mention that on a daily basis, hundreds, if not thousands of people from within the city of Kufa and from outside the city of Kufa would come to pledge allegiance towards Imam Muslim bin Aqeel, such that we said Imam Muslim bin Aqeel reached Kufa when? On the 5th of Shawwal. From the 5th of Shawwal to the 13th of Dhil Qa'ad of 60 AH, historians are of the opinion that there were close to 15,000 or 18,000 people who had given bay'ah to Imam al-Hussein. Ibn Shahr Ashub is of the opinion that there were 25,000 people from within the city of Kufa and the surroundings of the city of Kufa who had given bay'ah to Muslim bin Aqeel. Which is why, as soon as the number reached 25,000 on the 13th of Dhil Qa'ad, yani within a period of almost 30 days, from 5th of Shawwal to 13th of Dhil Qa'ad, give or take 30 days plus more, 30, 40 days, within a period of 40 days, 25,000 people, as per the riwayah of Ibn Shahr Ashub, gave bay'ah to Muslim bin Aqeel. Intum shufu the logistics of 25,000 people giving bay'ah over a period of give or take 30 days. Yani, taqriban, on a daily basis, 1,000 people are coming to give bay'ah to Imam Muslim bin Aqeel. And it is at this point that Imam Muslim bin Aqeel on the 13th of Dhil Qa'ad sends Abbas with a letter to go to Imam al-Hussein in Makkah, because Imam al-Hussein is in Makkah until the day of Arafah. So from the 3rd of Sha'ban until the time of Arafah, Imam al-Hussein is planting the seeds of his revolution inside of Makkah al-Mukarramah. Why he chose Makkah al-Mukarramah, inshallah, these nights of Muharram we will get to explain. But this 13th of Dhil Qa'ad, Muslim bin Aqeel sends Abbas towards Makkah. And he sends Abbas with a letter. And the summary of this letter is Muslim bin Aqeel says to Imam al-Hussein, hasten towards Kufa, for indeed the people are ready to support you. Mahal al-ta'ammul is a point of contemplation over here, Shabab. Abbas, who was Abbas? From the actions of Abbas on the day of Ashura, poetry has been written about love. Poetry has been written about ishq, an ishq that knows no bounds, based on the actions of Abbas. Minuhal Abbas is from Bani Shakir, tribe of Bani Shakir. Amir al-Mu'mineen, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil.
Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam used to say, Ba'ad Abbas is a product of the tarbiyah of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Abbas is a graduate from the madrasa of Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam. And this you find, to a great extent, the time and effort invested, if you could use these words, the time and efforts invested by Amir al-Mu'minin to raise and nurture individuals who would be from the ashab of Imam al-Hussein on the day of Ashura. Abbas, Amir al-Mu'minin says, to paraphrase, if there were 40 people like Abbas on this earth, I would be able to establish my right in this dunya. What is this Abbas? Shit is Aqidah. Day of Ashura, when he comes out, on the day of Ashura, there were a number of battles that happened. There was a battle which was collective, and then there were one-on-one duels, and then there were duels of twos and duels of threes. There were times where when the companions between the right wing and the left wing of Imam al-Hussein, when they went into the battlefield, Abul Fadil alayhi salam, how many times went into the battlefield to rescue them and bring them back? We have even within history that there was one point on the day of Ashura that Abul Fadil and Imam al-Hussein both went into the Maidan together. Aku kathir that happened. There is a lot that has happened on the day of Ashura. In one of these one-on-one duels, Abbas goes. And when he walks into the Katlaga, when he goes into the Maidan, he looks at the people, he looks at the people, and he sees this army, this sea of enemies that are in front of him. Some of the reporters, you could say, they say on the day of Ashura, you could not tell. Sometimes when you are on the seaside and you look at the water and you see the ocean, it is as if it is touching into the sky, it meets the horizon where the waters meet the skies. They said the army of Yazid was like this. Till the skies this army was. Abbas comes out into the Maidan. And li'ilmikum, for your knowledge, the Maidan, where almost 80% of the Battle of Karbala actually happened, is in the Sahan Husseini, where you and I, inshallah, were given the opportunity every year to visit Imam al-Hussein, inshallah, where the Salatul Jama'ah happens in the Sahan of Imam al-Hussein. This Sahan actually represents 80% of the Maidan, 80% of the actual war zone. Abbas walks into the Maidan and he looks at this army in front of him. What did he do? He threw his sword. He removed his armor. He removed his helmet and he ran right into the army. When he charged into the army got frightened of him. The army got absolutely scared and they began to flee from Abbas. They are with horsemen, they have arrows, they have swords, they have spears, they have, you can say, the best military weapon of that age against a man who is not even armed. An armed man, armed men, an armed army running away from an unarmed man. You know what they were scared of? They were scared of the iman that was beaming from the heart of Abbas. Because that love of Sayyid al-Shahadah and that love of Amir al-Mu'minin is much more deadlier than any weapon that can be brought to you in front of you. He came and he attacked them. They started throwing stones on Abbas. They threw stones upon him and they attacked him from every direction. And when they captured him, they asked him, they said, Abbas, are you crazy? Did you not think about the consequences of your action? And he says, to paraphrase his words, and his words in itself are more beautiful than to be captured in a way that is paraphrased. where he says to the effect that the love or the pain that a lover experiences in the way or in the path of whom he loves, that pain turns into sweetness. Yani my love for Imam al-Hussein, pain turns into sweetness.
برای خوشنود اهل بیت النبوة بلندتر صلوات
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
This is the scariest part, a person needs to be at this level of ishq and wala in order to be a postman in the madrasa of Ahl. Muslim bin Aqeel is selecting one person to send a letter that contains strategic information and the secrets of tashayyu' and the revolution which is in its looming stages. This postman. It's not a normal job to even be a postman when it comes to the ashab of Ahlul Bayt. Somebody like Abbas. When he reached where he reached, Imam Muslim bin Aqeel said to him, you send the letter. Not to downplay or to degrade this role of Abbas. This role of Abbas was Adim. In fact, we say it very easily. To be a postman for the Imam is perhaps the greatest honor. Every khidmah towards the Imam is an honor. To be a slave of the Imam is an honor. In any case, Muslim bin Aqeel alayhi salam sends Abbas to Makkah al-Mukarramah on the 13th of Dhul Qa'at. Within a period of 30 odd days, give or take, 25,000 people have given bay'ah. At the same time, there were dwellers within the city of Kufa, the likes of Shimr bin Dil Jawshan al-La'in and Umar ibn Sa'ad, who were noticing this joy and this environment in the city of Kufa, and they secretly wrote letters towards Yazid al-La'in, updating him on how the Kufans are pledging allegiance to Imam Muslim bin Aqeel. For Yazid al-La'in in Sham consulted, his main consultant was a person by the name of Sirjawn. Sirjawn was the son of the representative of the Roman Empire in Sham during the time of Umar ibn Khattab. And it was under his time that the father of Sirjawn was placed as a consultant for the governor of the Muslim Khalifa, when in essence they were representatives of the Roman Empire, for they had their hand in terms of consultation within the Islamic lands. Sirjawn recommends to Yazid al-La'in that the only way to salvage the city of Kufa and to ensure that it doesn't break under revolution is to appoint Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad as the governor of Kufa. Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad was the governor of Basra. For what Yazid al-La'in did is that he reconciled these two provinces under the leadership of one mayor or one governor, that governor being Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad. Ibn Ziyad leaves the city of Basra and comes to the city of Kufa. The governor of Kufa was a person by the name of Nu'man ibn Bashir. Nu'man was a weak person who did not have the stomach to take any stance. Not that he sympathized with Ahlul Bayt in any way. In any case, Nu'man ibn Bashir is deposed. Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad comes into the city of Kufa, assumes leadership. And the first thing he did is that he gathered the people of Kufa. He himself went into Masjid al-Kufa, ascended upon the mimbar, and after reciting a khutbah, praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says to the people of Kufa that your leader, the Amir al-Mu'mineen wal-Ayadu billah, your Amirul Mu'mineen Yazid bin Muawiyah wishes to honor you by increasing your stipend from the Baytul Mal. And straight away, what Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad did is that he stung out the people who were in this revolution and giving bay'ah to Imam Muslim bin Aqeel, not necessarily because they believed in Imam al-Hussein, but because they thought their financial gains would be better if, in today's language, they betted on Muslim bin Aqeel. And as soon as they saw that Ibn Ziyad is willing to give them the same amount of money and give them a greater stipend, they abandoned Muslim bin Aqeel. This was the first fall. Number two, Ibn Ziyad then issued a decree that anyone who is found to sympathize with Imam al-Hussein, or anyone who knows about anyone else sympathizing for Imam al-Hussein and he doesn't report him, he will be equally killed just as that person. Yani, and we'll elaborate this more in the nights of Muharram. What Ibn Ziyad did, al-La'in, he turned the city of Kufa into a city of what we would say in this day and age, a city of snitches. If you didn't snitch on a person who was a Shia of Amir al-Mu'mineen, you yourself risked being killed. Who would not turn into a snitch? If you are suspected of not reporting your neighbor as being a Shia, you yourself is very likely you'd be crucified. Wow. And if you look at this psychology of dhulm that was implemented, shaitaniyah, by Ibn Ziyad and Ibn Umayyah. Some of the politics that we see in the dictators, in the way that they rule in this day and age, if you were to read through history, these are lessons that they have taken from the leadership and the rule of Bani Umayyah and Bani Saqifa before them. الَّذِينَ أَسَّسُوا أَسَاسَ الظُّلْمِ وَالْجَوْرِ عَلَيْكُمْ أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ, as per Ziyarat Ashura. And in this manner, a number of the supporters of Imam Muslim bin Aqeel began to disappear. Kalamuna Tawil, our time is almost up. Masa'ib is a great masa'ib. فَبَقِيَتِ الْكَلَامُ وَتَتِمَّةِ الْكَلَامُ, the completion of this baht, inshallah, on the nights of Muharram, on what Ibn Ziyad did in order to infiltrate the movement of Imam Muslim bin Aqeel. There was a war that had taken place on the city of Kufa. There were mass executions that had happened before Muslim bin Aqeel was abandoned by himself. The narrations mention that Imam Muslim bin Aqeel called for a revolution, and the people of Kufa turned upon him. And on a night like this, the night of Arafah, you find that Imam Muslim bin Aqeel found himself all alone and abandoned in the city of Kufa. The narrations mention that Imam Muslim bin Aqeel, having called upon a revolution and the people abandoning him, he went into Masjid al-Kufa to recite Salatul Maghrib. The leader and the battalion in the city of Kufa, who in the morning had 4,000 people in his ranks, at the time of Salatul Maghrib has only 30 people with him. Upon the completion of Salatul Maghrib, Imam Muslim bin Aqeel looks back and there is not a single person in his vicinity. Allah, Allah. The Gharib of Kufa, Muslim bin Aqeel, he walks out of Masjid al-Kufa all alone, looking towards the right and the left. There is a decree that has been issued by Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad and a bounty placed on the head of Muslim bin Aqeel. The entire city is looking and searching for him. Muslim bin Aqeel, in the darkness of the night, traverses through the different alleyways of Kufa, looking for a place to looking for a place of safety and security, such that he may pass the message on to Sayyid al-Shuhada. The people of Kufa have abandoned us. He sat outside the house. He sat outside the house of a lady by the name of Tawha. When Taw'a looked at a stranger at his doorstep, at her doorstep, she came out to him and she said, "Oh man, this is the city of Kufa and there is military rule. This is not the best of times to be outside our house. If you are a stranger, may I offer you a drink of water?" Muslim bin Aqeel accepted. The woman comes out with a bowl. Muslim bin Aqeel drinks from the water, and he sits on the doorstep contemplating on how he will pass the message to his master Abu Abdullah about the desertion of Kufa. At this time, Taw'a came out again and she said, "O stranger, I forbid you to sit at my doorstep and know that I am not mahram to you. Return back to your family." When Imam Muslim bin Aqeel heard family, he looked down and tears began to roll down his eyes. She said to him, "Oh man, are you a stranger in the city? Do you not have a family to go to?" At this point, Muslim bin Aqeel looked at the lady and he said to her, "O servant of Allah, I am Muslim bin Aqeel from Bani Hashim and the nephew of Ali ibn Abi Talib. The people of the city of Kufa have abandoned me." When Taw'a heard this, Taw'a was a lover of Amir al-Mu'mineen. When she heard this, she fell to her feet and she said, "Oh master, forgive me that I didn't recognize you. Forgive me and let me host you in my house, and by me hosting you, I would like for you to intercede for me on the day of judgment with your uncle Amir al-Mu'mineen." Muslim bin Aqeel alayhi salam sought refuge in her house. She prepared for him a meal. Muslim bin Aqeel politely declined, and he spent the entire night, a night like this, in a state of ibadah between ruku and sujood, until a later part in the night when Taw'a, her son, came into the house. And how ghareeb and how ajib is this dunya. The woman Taw'a, who was a believer and a lover in Amir al-Mu'mineen, but her son by the name of Bilal was a khabith and an enemy of Ahlul Bayt. May Allah always protect us and our family and our lineages and grant us with children who are lovers of Ahlul Bayt, Ya Allah. Bilal comes into the house and Taw'a says to him, "Oh Bilal, why do you come at this time?" Bilal says, "Oh mother, Ibn Ziyad has issued a reward for anyone who captures Muslim bin Aqeel." Taw'a kept quiet, but she spent the entire night checking upon Muslim bin Aqeel. The son Bilal suspected that the mother was hiding something from him. So Bilal asked her, "Oh mother, why do you enter into that particular room? It is as if you are hiding something or someone from me." The mother says to her son, "Oh Bilal, I ask you to take an oath and a qasam by Allah that you shall not reveal this secret." Bilal takes a qasam. The mother trusts the son. She says, "Oh Bilal, I have given refuge to Muslim bin Aqeel." Bilal didn't say anything. The time of Salatul Fajr came. Bilal ran out of the house and went towards Darul Imara and told Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad he knew the whereabouts of Muslim bin Aqeel. As the time of Salatul Fajr set in, Muslim bin Aqeel stood up to recite the Salatul Fajr. The lady Taw'a came in with water for Muslim to do wudu. She says, "Oh my master, the candle was lit on in your room the entire night, and it is as if you have not even slept for a wink in this night." Muslim bin Aqeel replies to her, "I spent the entire night worshipping Allah, but oh lady, before the time of Salatul Fajr, I closed my eyes for a few moments and I saw in a dream my uncle Amir al-Mu'mineen bin Ali ibn Abi Talib calling out to me, saying to me, O Muslim, Al-Ajal, Al-Ajal, O Muslim, come to us, our separation has been for too long. So Muslim bin Aqeel says, O Taw'a, I am sure after this dream that today is the last day of my life. Having completed Salatul Fajr and reciting the Ta'qibat, the narrations mention that Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad sent 1,000 horsemen and 500 swordsmen towards the house of Taw'a to fight Muslim bin Aqeel. As he sat reciting the Quran, he heard the galloping of the horses and he heard the thumping of the feet on the ground as an army marched towards him, all of them under the leadership of Muhammad ibn Ash'ath. At this point, Muslim bin Aqeel stood up from the Musalla. He performed his final sajda to shukr. He then wore his armor, put on his headgear and took out his sword. Taw'a says to him, O my master Muslim, why do you not hide in the house? Perhaps they will not find you. Muslim bin Aqeel says, I am from Bani Hashim. Within us is the blood Hashimi. Never shall we be killed and found as cowards, and neither will I allow the sanctity of your house to be disrupted. Wa Muslima. The narrations mention Muslim bin Aqeel came out of the house and he began to charge the enemies like a roaring lion, striking them towards the right and striking them towards the left. The people showed the lion of Haydar al-Karrar within Muslim ibn Aqeel, such that the narrations mention that he killed a big number of them. Muhammad ibn Ash'ath with 1,500 men returns back to Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad and he asks for reinforcement. Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad says 1,500 men cannot kill a single person. Muhammad ibn Ash'ath says, Ibn Ziyad, you have not sent us to a grocer from the grocers of Kufa. You have sent us to a family that breeds lions after attacking lions. The narrations mention that Ibn Ziyad sent a reinforcement of 500 other men. They all tried to fight against Muslim bin Aqeel, but he kept killing them and sending them to Jahannam wa bi'as al-masir. When they were not able to attack Muslim bin Aqeel, they then diverted strategy and they began to climb onto the rooftops. Allah, Allah, ya Shia. When they couldn't attack Muslim bin Aqeel with a sword, from the top of the roofs they gathered and they began to throw stones on Muslim bin Aqeel. Some of them throwing stones upon him. Some of them were lighting clumps of grass on fire and were throwing this fire on Muslim bin Aqeel. He turned towards them and said, O men, fight me like real men and do not be cowards pelting me with stones. Allah, Allah. They surrounded him from the rooftops. As they began to throw stones on Muslim bin Aqeel, there were two stones that hit Muslim bin Aqeel. One of them, Muslim bin Aqeel, began to bleed from his ears. You know that when a person is attacked on the ear, or when the ear is punched, or when the ear is hit, the first thing that happens is that your sense of direction becomes disoriented. As this happened, another person threw a stone on the forehead of Muslim bin Aqeel. From behind, the arrows began to shower down upon him, attacking him from every direction. Muslim bin Aqeel was bleeding heavily. He continued to push forward with his sword. Muhammad ibn Ash'ath says, we will not be able to overcome this one man unless we deceive him. So what did they do? They began to dig a trench and they covered it with grass. They started inciting and provoking Muslim bin Aqeel to come forward. As he pushed forward, attacking them with his sword, he fell into the hole that was done for him. They came on top and they began to kick Muslim bin Aqeel. One kicked him in the face, one kicked him in the chest, another one would stab him with a spear on the side. Allah, Allah. Muslim bin Aqeel was removed from the hole. His hands were tied together and he was brought into Darul Imara in front of Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad. He looked at Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad. Ibn Ziyad says to him, will you not even say salam to your master? Muslim bin Aqeel says, you are not my master and never shall I do the salam to you. For Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad says, whether you recite the salam or you don't say the salam, today you will indeed be killed. Muslim bin Aqeel says, and there are people who are better than me who have been killed by those who are even worse than you. Muslim bin Aqeel then looks around for a final time. Allah, Allah. There was a there was a bowl of water within the Darul Imara. He asked if he could have the bowl. When this bowl of water was brought to him, when Muslim bin Aqeel tried to take a sip because of all the wounds on his face and his mouth, he tried to drink from the water, but his tooth fell out and was covered with blood. He looked at the bowl and he said, in my rizq it is not written that I will drink from this water. Ya Muslim, your fate is that you will die thirsty like your master Abu Abdullah in Karbala. Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad says, take Muslim bin Aqeel to the rooftop and have him beheaded. Muslim bin Aqeel, Allah, Allah, ya Shia, was dragged to the rooftop of Darul Imara. His hands were tied behind his back. And then he asked Muslim bin Aqeel if he could recite a 2 rakat salah. Muslim bin Aqeel recited the 2 rakat salah. And then he began to weep. The man with the sword says to him, O Muslim, are you such a coward such that you cry before you are going to die? Muslim bin Aqeel says, I do not cry for myself, but I cry for my master Abu Abdullah, who is making ways towards the city of Kufa. The narrations mention then he raised his hands towards the heaven. Muslim bin Aqeel says, Allahumma ahkum baynana wa bayna qawmin ghadaruna wa khadaluna. Ya Allah, you judge between us and this nation that has deceived us. He then turned towards the direction of Makkah. 3 times Muslim bin Aqeel said, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. At this moment on the 3rd salam, the la'in struck the neck of Muslim bin Aqeel. A strike was such that it separated the head of Muslim bin Aqeel from the body. The Maktal says the head, I don't know, ya Shia, if you'll be able to listen to this, but the Maktal says the head of Muslim bin Aqeel rolled down Darul Imara onto the ground. As blood was gushing from the jugular vein, they took the body of Muslim bin Aqeel and they threw it from the very top of Darul Imara. Do not ask me how many bones are broken in the body of Muslim bin Aqeel. Allah, Allah, Ya Shabab, Hani ibn Urwa was also killed. The narrations mention that the body of Hani ibn Urwa and the body of Muslim bin Aqeel was tied with ropes around the legs, and the other part of the rope was tied onto horses. It is the day of Eid. These Kufans were celebrating Eid, and in the streets of Kufa, the headless body of Muslim bin Aqeel is being dragged with horses. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. مات حسين، مات مسلم بن عقيل.
يا حسين حسين يا 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 حسين
आजा, आज की रात तुझे गोदी में सुला दूं मेरे असर आजा, आज की रात तुझे गोदी में सुला दूं मेरे असर आजा, आज की रात तुझे गोदी में सुला दूं मेरे असर आजा, आज की रात तुझे गोदी में सुला दूं मेरे असर आजा, आज की रात तुझे गोदी में सुला दूं मेरे असर आजा, पूरी अरमान से भरपूर सुना दूं मेरे असर आजा, आज की रात तुझे गोदी में सुला दूं मेरे असर आजा, आज की रात तुझे गोदी में सुला दूं मेरे असर आजा, आज की रात तुझे गोदी में सुला दूं मेरे असर आजा, पीर के आगे मेरे लाल तुझे होगे, देख कर तेरी हंसी फिल्म में भी होगे, वो तरीके लड़ाई सिखा दूं मेरे असर आजा, आज की रात तुझे गोदी में सुला दूं मेरे असर आजा, आज की रात तुझे गोदी में सुला दूं मेरे असर आजा, पहले अल्लाह का मैं शुक्र बजाता हूँगी, देख कर तेरा हाल मैं मर जाऊंगी, मैं तुझे मौत की हिचकी से बचा दूं मेरे असर आजा, आज की रात तुझे गोदी में सुला दूं मेरे असर आजा, आज की रात तुझे गोदी में सुला दूं मेरे असर आजा, पीर के आगे मेरे लाल तुझे होगे, देख कर ने भी होना ने भी होना है, वो तरीके लड़ाई सिखा दूं मेरे असर आजा, आज की रात तुझे गोदी में सुला दूं मेरे असर आजा, आज की रात तुझे गोदी में सुला दूं मेरे असर आजा, या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन, गुरबत में तत्व हो गया मज़लूम बेवतन, मैं भाई भाई कहती थी लाशा बन बन, गुरबत में कर्ज हो गया
السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا خديجة الكبرى، السلام عليك يا علي المرتضى، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء، السلام عليك يا حسن الشباب، السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين، خصوصا سيد يوم الآية بالفضل الأباس وقت زينب وأم كلثوم وابن سكينة. السلام عليكم يا سائر الشهداء ربنا جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا مولاي وابن مولاي، السلام عليك يا طريق الغرباء، السلام عليك يا معين الضعفاء والفقراء، الشمس وليس النفوس أيها المكفون على النفوس، من شفيعنا وشفيع والدينا في يوم الجزاء والسلطان الحسن على الملك المسرفة وقت فاتم المعصوم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا